Chuck Norris. A graded reader, level A2. Chapter 1, The Call for Help. The sun was very hot in the Texas desert. Chuck was at his ranch with his horses. Suddenly, his old radio started to make a noise. An old man was speaking. "Help us, please," the man said. "We are in a small village called Rio Bravo. Some bad men are here. They want our land and our gold." Chuck listened to the voice. He knew he had to go. He put on his boots and his hat. He didn't say a word. He just walked to his big truck. Chapter 2, The Long Journey. Rio Bravo was a long way from the ranch. Chuck drove his truck across the dry land. The road was very bad and there were many rocks. Most cars could not drive there. But Chuck's truck was special. It moved like a tiger through the sand. Chuck did not stop for food or water. He was not hungry and he was not tired. He thought about the people in Rio Bravo. They were simple farmers. They were afraid and alone. Chuck pushed the accelerator. The engine made a loud noise. Chapter 3, Arrival in Rio Bravo. Chuck arrived in the village in the evening. The town was very quiet. Dust moved in the wind. He parked his truck in the middle of the square. He got out and looked around. A small boy walked towards him. "Are you the hero?" the boy asked. Chuck looked at the boy and smiled. "I am just a man who doesn't like bad people," Chuck said. The villagers came out of their houses. They looked at Chuck's strong arms. They felt a little better. But then, they heard the sound of motorcycles. Chapter 4, The Bad Men. 10 motorcycles entered the village. The riders were big and they looked dangerous. The leader was a man called the Snake. He had a scar on his face. The Snake stopped his motorcycle in front of Chuck. He laughed loudly. "Who are you, old man?" The Snake asked. "Go home before you get hurt." Chuck didn't move. His eyes were like ice. "You are bothering these people," Chuck said quietly. "It is time for you to leave." The bad men laughed again. They didn't know who they were talking to. Chapter 5, The First Lesson. The Snake moved his hand to his belt. He wanted to take his knife. But Chuck was faster than the wind. Chuck moved his leg in a perfect circle. It was the famous roundhouse kick. The Snake didn't see it. The kick hit the air near his face. The wind from the kick was so strong that the Snake fell off his motorcycle. He was not hit, but he was very afraid. The other men stayed on their bikes. They were surprised. "That was a warning," Chuck said. "The next one will not miss." The bad men looked at their leader on the ground. They started to feel very nervous. Chapter 6, The Fight Begins. The Snake was very angry now. "Get him," he shouted to his men. All 10 men ran towards Chuck at the same time. The villagers screamed and ran into their houses. But Chuck did not move his feet. He waited until the first man was very close. Chuck moved his arm like a flash of light. He blocked a punch and pushed the man away. 2 more men tried to grab his jacket. Chuck moved his body to the left and then to the right. The men hit each other and fell into the dust. Chuck was like a wall of stone. Nothing could move him. Chapter 7, The Secret Weapon. One of the bad men had a heavy iron chain. He swung the chain over his head. The chain made a scary sound in the air. The man threw the chain at Chuck's legs. Chuck jumped high into the air. He stayed in the air for a long time. While he was in the air, he caught the chain with his hand. The man was very surprised. Chuck pulled the chain with his great strength. The man flew through the air and landed in a pile of hay. "Do you have any more toys?" Chuck asked. The other men stopped moving. They were terrified of his power. Chapter 8, The Legend Revealed. The Snake looked at Chuck's face carefully. He saw the red hair and the strong jaw. He remembered the stories he heard in the city. "Wait!" the snake cried to his men. "Look at his eyes. Look at his boots. This is not a normal cowboy. This is Chuck Norris." The men became very white. They knew the legends about him. They knew that Chuck Norris once fought a bear and the bear lost. They knew that he never sleeps, he only waits. The men dropped their weapons on the ground. They didn't want to fight a legend. Chapter 9, The Great Escape. "Let's go. Move now," the snake shouted. He jumped on his motorcycle and started the engine. His hands were shaking with fear. The other men ran to their bikes too. They didn't look back at the village. They didn't care about the gold or the land anymore. They only wanted to be far away from Chuck Norris. They drove away so fast that they left a giant cloud of dust. The sound of the motorcycles disappeared into the desert. The village was quiet again. The sun started to go down behind the mountains. The danger was gone. Chapter 10, A Hero's Reward. The villagers came out of their houses. They cheered and they clapped their hands. "You saved us," the old man said. The women brought flowers and the children danced. They wanted to give Chuck a bag of gold. They wanted to give him the best house in the village. Chuck shook his head slowly. "I don't need gold," he said. "I only need a glass of cold water." The small boy ran to get the water. Chuck drank it and looked at the sky. He was happy because the people were safe. He was a simple man with a big heart. Conclusion: the road ahead. The next morning, the air was fresh and cool. Chuck climbed into his big black truck. The villagers stood on the road to say goodbye. The small boy waved his hat. "Will you come back?" the boy asked. Chuck looked at the boy and nodded. "If there is trouble, I will be there," he promised. He started the engine and drove into the desert. There are many stories about Chuck Norris. Some stories are funny and some are amazing. But the people of Rio Bravo know the truth. Chuck Norris is a true hero. And the legend continues on the long road ahead. The end.